Webster Groves. John is an author. He's a motivational speaker, and he's got a tremendous story to tell. And he also has a piece coming up on MLB Network about the city's beloved Jack Buck. So good morning, John.
Good morning, Jay, and hi, Kelly.
Hi there. Good to see you again.
It's a pleasure.
Let's start with your story because it's just fascinating. I mean, it's amazing.
Yeah, I think everybody's got a story that's pretty amazing. We just may not realize how really amazing it is. And that's certainly true for me. I'm a St. Louis guy, born and raised, still live here, 4 children, married, great life. And the story you're talking about, Jay, was when I was 9 years old, I got burned in a gasoline explosion on 100% of my body. It's a death sentence. I absolutely should not be here today, and yet through grace and my brother's quick actions and my mom and dad's love and the staff at Mercy and a whole lot of other things working together perfectly, I get to be your guest this morning. But one of the things that worked in my favor was the night I was burned, a phone call went out, which led to another phone call, which led to another phone call, which led to Reg Shaindeeds hearing about it, which led to him telling his friend Jack Buck that a little boy named John O'Leary got burned in St. Louis, Missouri on January 17, 1987, and keep him in your thoughts and prayers. And for those of us who grew up in this region, we realized that Jack was not only a phenomenal broadcaster, but maybe even a better guy. Mm-hmm. The following day, I'm laying in a hospital bed in St. Louis, tied down to it. I can't move. My body is wrapped in bandages. My eyes are swollen shut. I can't do a thing, guys, except here. And what little boy growing up in this region would not have loved that voice of Jack Buck, not only on the radio. Radio's powerful. KTRS understands this, but actually in person. Sunday afternoon, Jack Buck walks into my burn center, into my room, into my life, into my darkness, and says to me loud and clear, "Kid, wake up. Wake up. You are going to live. You are going to survive. Keep fighting. John O'Leary Day at the ballpark will make it all worthwhile.
Wow.
See you soon." And then he leaves. And he's told by the doctors and nurses that the little boy is going to die. There's no reason for hope. And the following day, this old, chiseled broadcaster shows up again, and then he comes again, and then he comes again, even though the situation is hopeless, for 5 months of visits. And that's just the beginning of the story with Jack Buck.
That's an amazing story, and it's indicative of the person that Jack Buck was. But what a great story that you had to fight through that. It must have been very tough for you.
Oh yeah, I mean, I've never been through any other kind of intense physical pain other than burns, but I've never had anything that even touches what you deal with as a burn patient.
And I also love the story of how he kept returning. Oh, after he would send you a baseball. Yes. And the first one was signed by Ozzie Smith, right?
That's exactly right, Kelly.
And then every day after that, he's like, he was forcing you to learn how to write again.
So at John O'Leary Day at the ballpark, he learned that I knew every baseball stat, Ozzie Smith's batting average and everything else, but could not hold a drink. Today, for those of you watching at home, I can hold a coffee in my hands, and I'm very functioning today. I don't have fingers, if you're listening right now, though. So back in 1987, I could not hold anything in my hands. Jack sees this the night of John O'Leary Day at the ballpark. The following day, to your point, Kelly, he sends me a baseball. This is so uniquely Jack Buck. The baseball was signed by Ozzie Smith. Below the ball was a note that read, "Kid, if you want a second baseball, all you have to do is send a thank you letter to the guy who signed the first." Mom was trying to get me to write too. What she was saying is, "Hey, baby, when you learn how to write again, you get to go back to school." Okay, well, that wasn't exactly turning this 9-year-old dude on.
That wasn't a big motivator.
Right. I mean, it may have worked for you, Kelly or Jay or listeners, not for this dude. And then Jack shows up with a baseball. I send it off. The following day, I get a second baseball. A few days later, I get a third baseball. A few days later, a fourth baseball. 1987, Jack Buck sends a 9-year-old with no fingers, and he's really a nobody in life, 60 baseballs, teaching just a little normal kid how to write again, to become somebody again. And I went back to grade school and then high school and ultimately into college.
And then you got, for your high school graduation,
That's right. Wow, you really know the story.
Yes, this story. I was like tearing
You've done
up
your homework.
Oh, my goodness.
It's a tremendous story. And I think in life, if you're really fortunate, you get one cool thing that kind of symbolizes success, whatever that might mean for a mom or a dad or a broadcaster, whatever it may be. And for Jack Buck, going into the Hall of Fame, he received a little crystal baseball. Gorgeous item. When I graduated school, Jack Buck shows up with a package and a note. The note read, "Kid, this means a lot to me. I hope it means a lot to you too." And below the ball, or below the note, was a little crystal baseball. The note went on to say, "This is the baseball I received when I went into the Hall of Fame. Means a lot to me. I hope it means a lot to you too, kid. Enjoy. It's yours."
That's so amazing. What a great man. So there's this. You've done a special with Joe Buck about Jack Buck that's airing on MLB Network for Father's Day. Tell us about
exactly
that.
right. So MLB had heard that the St. Louis Cardinals invited John O'Leary, this little 9-year-old boy who's grown up a little bit since then, to speak to the St. Louis Cardinals in spring training. So they hear about this and they're like, "Wow, what a full story this is." 30 years earlier, they're taking care of him. 30 years later, now he gets to speak to them. What a cool story. So they come in, they film this. Joe Buck hears about it. So we all come together and we celebrate the reason why the story happened in the first place, which was not just the DeWitt family, although they're certainly a part of it, or Mo or Matheny. It's Jack Buck. So Joe Buck and I get to hang out at Busch Stadium a couple weeks ago. We talk about his dad. We talk about baseball. We talk about challenges. We talk about life. And we talk about the ability we all have in our lives to make a difference. And who better to model that than Jack Buck? And so it's this really crazily well done piece on Jack Buck impacting the little boy's life. I watched it last night with my 5-year-old daughter, Grace. And Grace, she's 5. She doesn't get the full context of the story. And yet, as I looked over to her with her little blonde hair and rim glasses, she's crying. And she looks back at her dad, I'm crying. It is an incredibly beautiful piece that we hope not only Cardinal Nation tunes into, but Baseball Nation, and then a nation that is so beat down by what's wrong. I mean, we are divided all the way along every line you can imagine. We are very divided, and yet one of the things that brings us together is baseball. One of the things that brings us together is sacrifice and love. And in this little piece brought to you by MLB, you're going to see what real love and real sacrifice and real significance looks like in action.
Where can we see it, John? MLB Network starting when?
Yeah, I mean, it starts today. I believe we're going to try to get a link up on your Facebook page for the entire video. It's 11 minutes, and it will be your best 11 minutes of the weekend. It's an incredible piece.
And you have a book out, too, a new book?
Yeah,
Is that right?
The book, it's called On Fire. If you haven't read On Fire, get to the library or your Barnes & Noble or your local retailer today or Amazon. It came out last March. It became a #1 national bestseller. It's being translated into 13 languages. The reason I love On Fire is it has nothing to do with the author. It's just story after story of incredible people like Jack Buck. Some you heard of, like Jack Buck, but many, 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 many you would not have, like my janitor, like my brother and my 4 sisters. So it's just a terrific story.
Because you never know what person will touch your life and totally change your life.
And you never know how you are showing up and touching the life of someone else. That's our calling.
Yeah. John O'Leary, author, speaker, subject of an MLB Network video with Jack Buck and Joe Buck. Thank you so much for sharing your story and being with us today.
And happy Father's Day.
Kelly.